This conference will now be recorded.
You're all set, Mayor.
Thank you. In compliance with the Open Public Meeting Law, I wish to state that on March the 19th, 2021, the notice of this meeting of the Upper Township Committee was posted on the official Township Bulletin Board, the Upper Township website, and the Town Hall foyer, mailed to the Cape May County Gazette, the Atlantic City Press, the Ocean City Sentinel Ledger, the Herald Times, and filed with the Township Clerk. Tonight's meeting is being audio recorded up until the closed session portion of this meeting and will be available on the Upper Township website. I hereby direct that this announcement made a part of the minutes of this meeting. I would ask all to rise. Barbara's got her flag there, so let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
Pledge
flag
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to
the republic
which it stands,
which stands one nation under God,
indivisible, with
indivisible, with liberty for all.
Barbara, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr,
Here.
Mr. Coggins,
Here.
Person, Hayes,
Here.
Mayor Palumbo.
Here. All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes, both the regular and closed session minutes from March the 8th, 2021?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any corrections, deletions, omissions that anyone's aware of?
No.
Being none, let's call the roll.
Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Person,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried with all in favor.
Okay, so I'll tell you what I'd like to do. I noticed that Mr. Costello's on the line this evening, who is our auditor. And I think what we should do is go through the budget introduction, the reading of the statements that need to be talked about. If Leon has anything to interject, or John, if you have anything to interject, I think we can do that. And then we can go back to the report of the governing bodies so that we don't hold Mr. Costello up. So Leon,
Yes.
what is there any statement that needs to be read before we introduce our cap budget?
Not the capital ordinance to do the cap bank. You'll do that
Okay.
first. So nothing needs to be read before that. You have
Okay.
that ordinance in front of you for first reading.
Okay. John, you have anything further to disclose before we go through the process?
Nothing further other than thank you to all of the department heads and to Mrs. Ludi, who did a phenomenal job this year trying to make sure that we got our budget squared away and on time. Thank you.
All right. With that being said, would someone like to introduce the 2021 budget cap ordinance and budget introduction?
I'd like to make a motion to introduce ordinance number 008-2021, calendar year 2021, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank, new NJSA 40A:4-45.14.
Public
Second.
hearing on 4/26.
I'm sorry, what was it, the date, April 26th?
Yes.
Okay, would someone like to second that?
Second.
Okay,
Second.
is there any further discussion before we take the roll call? Okay, hearing none, would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Now,
with
Mayor, you
all in
have the, whoops.
Go ahead, Leon.
I was going to say, now we have the formal introduction of the budget. Obviously, This has been going on for several months, and we're now to the point where we officially introduce it. So the public has a chance to look at it, and we'll come back for a public hearing on April 26th, I think, is the
Yes.
public hearing date. This budget contains a 1.7 cent tax increase. It is in compliance with both the state caps and provides for the services that you've had in the past. There's no one-time revenues, no one-time expenses, there's no gimmicks in it. This is straight up 1.7 cent tax increase.
Okay,
Will I
would
read the
someone like to
resolution?
introduce?
Would you like me to read the resolution first, Leon?
Yes, please.
Municipal budget notice. Municipal budget of the Township of Upper and the County of Cape May for the fiscal year 2021. Be it resolved that the following statements of revenues and appropriations shall constitute the municipal budget for the year 2021. Be it further resolved that said budget be published in the press of Atlantic City in the issue of April 1st, 2021. And we have the introduction of the 2021 budget.
Okay, would someone like to introduce that? Make a
Motion
motion.
to introduce.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion
Okay,
is
so-
carried. All in
right.
favor?
And now we'll have the public hearing on April 26th. At that time, if there's anything needs to be changed, we can change it. Or if it's all good the way it is, we'll adopt it.
Okay. If none of the committee members have any questions of Leon, we can let Leon go. I appreciate you joining us, Leon. This is
No
a tradition that we have been having for many years with you coming both to the introduction, and I'm sure you'll be there for the public hearing.
Absolutely,
if
yes.
Questions should arise.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you for putting me first. That's
Thank you,
great.
Leon.
Thanks,
Okay.
Leon.
Guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Okay, so before we move on to Resolution 3, let's go back to the governing body. Let's see, Scott, do you have anything for us this evening?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and committee members. I'll start out with our Cape May County Department of Health report on COVID-19. The New Jersey Health Department reports that Cape May County crossed its next vaccination milestone with 51,019 doses of the vaccine having been administered in Cape May County when combining the vaccine doses given out by the Cape May County Department of Health and other entities. This total number of doses includes a combination of first and second dosages, and the Cape May County has consistently been one of the top counties in the state for vaccinations per capita. As far as our report for today's date, March 22nd, 2021, since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've had 7,493 COVID-19 cases, of which 7,006 of those are now off of quarantine. And we've had a total of 191 deaths as a result of COVID-19 since the beginning of the pandemic. I also wanted to report this evening that, as you know, Mayor, every 4 years, every municipal emergency management department is required to review and update its emergency operations plan. The plan consists of a series of different annexes that all support vulnerabilities and hazards of the municipality. And it also includes, this is an all-hazard perspective. It includes what Paul reported on several meetings ago with respect to the CRS program, and it basically integrates with that program. Back in December of 2020, December 30th specifically, we filed our next round of 4-year certification. And I'm pleased to report, and that'll run, by the way, from February 28, 2021 to February 28, 2025. I found out verbally today from County Office of Emergency Management that our plan was approved and recertified for the next 4 years. And we should be receiving a letter from Region 2, New Jersey State Police Emergency Management anytime soon.
Great.
The other thing is we're also in the process of, which is due April 9th, we'll be making application for our next round of EMAA, or Emergency Management Assistance Funds. As you know as well, every year we apply for a $10,000 grant that we get through FEMA and the state. So we'll be going through that process once again. And like I say, that questionnaire and the information involved is due to the state and county on April the 9th. I just have one more request this evening this comes from our Public Works Department. The Clean Communities Council Coordinator Certification Training Program. We are requesting that one individual from our Public Works Department take this 3-day online course. Normally, that in and of itself is not an issue when it comes to requesting permission from the committee, but it does come along with a $275 certification amount. And so I'm looking for permission this evening, approval from the committee to approve our Public Works employee, Rich Kazmarski, to take this course.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the training.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Person,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Very good, and that's all I have, and thank you very much.
Okay. Let's see.
Thanks, Scott.
Barbara Young, do you have anything for us this evening?
Nothing at this time, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Daniel.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Paul.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a couple things. First, just wanted to let the committee know I did meet with FEMA last week to start the reimbursement process for the declaration that we had for the tornado last year with the tropical storm Isaias. So I'll be working with Public Works and gathering their information, work with Scott to certify the funds and to get reimbursement for the cleanup costs. We're anticipating, putting in probably close to $250,000 to almost $300,000 worth of damages for the storm total. So hope to get, I think it's at a 75% reimbursement. So hoping to get some of those funds back, and we'll keep the committee updated on what the final tally is for those storms. And then I just wanted to let the committee know the contractor did start today out on Beasley's Point Park. So that project is officially kicked off and started. They started clearing some of the vegetation to start the construction work. And they'll continue work through the next couple months to get the first phase of the project. And I know we have an item later on the agenda for the boat ramp. So we'll probably have some more discussion later if you don't want to start it now.
I think that's prudent, but the one thing I would like to bring up, I know that there's been an ask for a proclamation to put a temporary no parking for the lot and also probably the beach area. I know that there's going to be significant amount of construction going on at that area. I do have a little concern about what happens when we get to Memorial Day and what happens when we get into June. But I mean, as long as the committee's okay with it, I think that we could post no parking signs while at least initial construction's going on, where they're probably putting curbing in and a lot, and I guess drainage and all those kind of things. And then maybe be able to work a little bit with the construction crew to see if we can facilitate some sort of parking, to handle potentially, Memorial Day weekend and maybe a few weekends in June. I know that the talk is that this should be completed somewhere by July 1st, from what I understand. So I don't know if we need a full approval by the committee to have a no parking signs put up there, or just to inform everybody that this is probably something we need to do going forward.
Our ordinance requires a resolution of the township committee. I would suggest to get the sense of the committee and
Okay.
put a resolution next
Then
week.
I'll make a motion that for, on a temporary basis, we propose to put no parking at both the lot and also the parking area in front of the beach until such time as it's safe for not only pedestrians, but the cars to be able to park during construction.
I'll second that.
Okay, would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Are you wishing to have the full discussion on this now, or do you want to
No,
wait?
I
till we
think we
get to-
can wait till that, because there's a lot of other things we need to accomplish, and maybe there'll be some more thoughts as we get closer to that discussion towards the end of the meeting. So go ahead.
That's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Barbara Ludi,
You're mute.
you're mute, Barbara.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. I do have a couple things this evening. First, I had correspondence from our Government Finance Officers Association requesting that we support a Senate bill introduced by Senate President Sweeney that would protect the long-term health and viability of our local pension system. It's supported by the government finance officers. It's supported by League of Municipalities, by New Jersey Association of Counties, along with some other organizations. So if you would like to support that, they're asking for a resolution to go on a future agenda.
I think that is probably a prudent thing to do. So I'm in favor of having that resolution put on the agenda. If you need
Yes,
a
I am too.
formal vote, I'll make a motion to do so.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you. And I do have a template for the resolution for that. And one other request for myself to attend a purchasing forum. It will be virtual for 3 days in April. It's going to be April 27th through 29th. They're half days. So I can still be in the office and get some work done, along with attending the purchasing conference. The cost is $236 and requesting permission for that.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
and Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I had this evening.
Thank you, Barbara. Committeeman Coggins, anything to add to any discussion?
Nothing this evening, sir.
All right, thank you again for all your efforts in helping us introduce our budget. Great job. And to you,
Thank you.
Barbara Ludi, and to everyone involved, all the supervisors, et cetera. Let's see. Committeeman Corson.
Thank you, Rich. Couple things to report. The lifeguard tryouts are scheduled for the 12th of June at 11 a.m. And it should be hopefully a good time had by all. And we'll pick up a couple guards. If Linda's on here, I'd like to see if Linda could put that sent that out to Strathmore Improvement Association for any local kids might live out of town, might want to see it and get involved. I don't know. The Rescue Squad installation dinner was last Saturday night. It was a very nice event. Enjoyed it, and the volunteer rescue squad, it was without a hitch. It was a very nice event, and I'd like to thank them for the invite. I did meet this last weekend with a couple members of the Strathmere Fishing Environmental Club, Wayne Thomas, Scott Oliver, and Herb Hollinger. And we had a good round table discussion about a couple of the issues and we're facing the Strathmere. And one of them is a causeway between the bridges there, the Rush Chatton and the Corson's Inlet Bridge. It's pretty much in imminent danger. I don't know if anybody's seen it lately. The county has put some cones out there. And one good storm, it's going to go, I would think. I think we need to do what we can to get the county moving to get that repaired or fixed. Do you know anything about it, Paul? Or I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, right after the last set of storms we had nor'easters a couple months ago, when it washed out that last time, I was on the phone with the county engineer the next day, and he said that he was actually out there that same day, and he's aware of the problem. And you know, I think they're looking to hire a contractor to I think it's a little bit bigger than what the county workers want to face, and so I think they're trying to find they're playing on a bigger Band-Aid than what the county Public Works can do. So they're working on it.
Well, they need
it may make sense, though. I realize that, you know, it probably might take some additional engineering and, you know, outsourcing the repair. But the reality is we are in March, and March into April typically is when we have some storms that have caused some major damage. And I would suggest that at a minimum, we send at least a letter requesting that the county have some sort of plan in place in the event that the storm should come before the necessary repairs are made, that they're prepared to put at least some, you know, structural changes or whatever that will get us through a storm so that we don't lose the causeway to through traffic. I mean, if we all remember what happened with Sandy and that riprap, I think that's what it's called, the rocks went everywhere onto the road, and it took a number of days, even more than that, to get it cleared off. So it might make sense to at least get that acknowledgement from the county.
We're in imminent danger of losing the road. It's that close.
Right.
So we need to get something.
I mean, I'd suggest that the committee, you know, that we send a letter, you know, requesting that some sort of immediate plan be put into place, realizing that, you know, the outsourcing of what they're looking to do, you know, may take a little longer than, you know, than expected. So.
I mean, one of the
we should
biggest
just do
problems
we'll just go ahead with what we've done before with all the other roadways. Just send the commissioner that's head of the highways and have them send out a crew, check it out, and see what improvements have to be done. We have to start documenting.
I mean, the biggest concern I have is a lot of our first responders, our ambulances all come from the Ocean City side. They back up our fire company. And if we lose that road with Seal being flooded, we're going to be literally an island with no way in or out. So I think we have to get after the
Well, they did a lot of structural improvements over the years. Obviously, it's deteriorating right now. So.
Right. So rather than
who would send the letter, Mayor?
I will work with Dan to send a letter on behalf of the committee to make sure that the county puts this as a priority. And really, it could ultimately affect the safety of our residents on Strathmere because, as what Mr. Corson just said, the 911 dispatch for EMS and also fire, as mutual aid comes from Ocean City. So,
Yes.
is everyone okay with it?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Just, if you put that in form of motion and have a second, let's have a vote on it. So you just get it in the minutes. That'd be great.
I will make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Okay, and I have a couple more things. The boat ramps in Strathmere, we've all seen pictures of them. How we got them scheduled to get repaired before the season starts, I hope?
I'm sorry, Curtis. What was that you were speaking of? It kind of went out.
The boat ramp on Bayview, the fill between the blocks is eroded on a couple of them, and there's a bad drop off at the end. And the one on Taylor Road needs gravel put on it. So is there any way we can get that scheduled and get them fixed?
Craig, you're on the line. Is that something the Public Works can do?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. No problem.
All right, thanks, Craig. Get them on the short list, please. The other thing we talked about, thank you. The other thing we talked about was Executive Order 89 that the governor put out a while back. Talked about coastal flooding and the monies that are going to be available for with the global warming stuff and all that. There's going to be some grant money available coming down the pike, and we've talked about a couple of projects, and funding always seemed to be an issue. And one of the projects we talked about was behind Bayview there to stop the tidal floods. And this goes as far as it goes into talking about pumping stations and all that. And I think that's where CL may have applied for some of their money. But there is a grant writer that's been very active in pursuing grants. And I think we maybe should reach out to him and see if we can get some grant money for some of these projects we have in the pipeline. Maybe even pumping stations somewhere. And his name was Jim Rotella. He's very active. I think he's based out of Philadelphia's office. And he's been very active in a lot of the Toms River area communities.
Are you referring to the former administrator at Ocean City?
Ocean City.
Yes.
All right. We did have him as a grant writer for a number of years. So
Right.
we needed just an estimate from him, professional contract.
Right.
Yes. Well, this Executive Order 89 is going to open up a lot of money for us if we wanted to try to chase it around. I mean, not just for us, but other municipalities. And I'd like to see us try to get into some of that money if we can. So I guess I'm asking if we can have Paul reach out to him and see what his availability is and see if we can get some grant money for a couple of these projects we're trying to do. Fix some of our drainage over there and all that.
Well, we can certainly.
Sure, I can reach out and talk to him and see what the.
But understand we're going to have a contract with him, and that's something that we'll have to bring that back to the township committee because obviously there's fees involved, percentages of what the grant allows. So I don't know what the percentage is, but let's say the grant writer gets 10% of the overall amount of the grant or something like that. So I really think that contract needs to be brought back to the township committee before anything is done through Jim Rotella.
Yes.
And Jim usually is a upfront payment grant writer, typically. So we have to pay them ahead of time.
Regardless of whether you get the grant or not. That's what happened in the last contract we had.
Right.
But that's up to the township committee. I think we get a proposal from them and we bring it to you folks to review.
I'd like to see us do that if we can. I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Wilkerson,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
And that's all I have at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Committeewoman Hayes.
Hello, everyone. So I have a couple things tonight. First, just some updates on what our buildings and grounds crew's been up and getting to work on. They've been really working on our fields, getting them ready for the spring season and doing some repairs, from the fall sports season. Specifically our baseball fields, they made some repairs to the backstops and irrigation system, reinforced the pitcher's mound. They're using the rototiller to the infields to get that up. We are finished the overseeding for the football field at Caldwell Park. Sometime in the next few weeks, we're going to be fertilizing over there, but we've all agreed that we're going to put out, formal dates so that the public in that area is aware, because there is obviously an odor when you fertilize. So we would like everyone to know what's going on ahead of time. We also are rotating some of the fields at Amanda's Field to give them some rest periods. So right now it's the midfield, which is the old football field. And we appreciate the public's cooperation with that. Our sports and rec teams have been awesome working around that with us as well. I think that's all I had for housekeeping, but I did have a couple other things that I just wanted to address real quick. So I know that we're all aware that March is Women's History Month. I would just like to see us, make a formal resolution just observing March as Women's History Month. So I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Second.
Would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
So in that same spirit, I know I'd heard some rumbling, some concern about the Beasley's Point project with regard to the Women's Heritage Trail site that's there, and was that going to be preserved? So I took some time over the weekend to go and visit the site, reviewed the plans, and I had a conversation with Paul this morning. We both agreed that the current site where it is should remain undisturbed throughout the construction, so there shouldn't be any disruption to that site for now. But we would like to see that move to a more prominent site once the project's complete. There's a number of areas that it'll be able to be displayed a little more really nicely. We'll be able to have it more out in the open, some landscaping, that kind of thing. And I understand that the Historical Society was pretty key in picking the site where it is, so we'll definitely reach out to them for some input on where the new site will be. Am I missing anything on that, Paul?
No,
Well, the only thing
right there.
I can recall is that site was picked because we thought there would be the most traffic that the sign could be seen. So we certainly can reach out to the Historical Society, but I'm sure what they're looking for the highest visibility possible. So.
Yeah. So I don't think they would disagree with that. And then the last thing I had, I know that there's a number of people in the community that have been following along with the DeAugustine family, specifically their son JJ has been having some medical issues. So today is his 15th birthday. So I would just ask that everybody here wish JJ a happy birthday and send some healing thoughts and prayers to his family.
Okay.
And that's it for me.
All right. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Barr.
Oh, I'd like to take the opportunity to circle back on a concern that Ms. Petrella had on New Bridge Road. I did follow up with Commissioner Pearson from the county. He reassured me that New Bridge Road is now on the 2022 list of roadways to be repaired, and that in the meantime, he will be sending out a crew. The county road department will send out a crew to fix any potholes, to smooth out the roadway, at least make the roadway a lot more accommodating to the residents until it gets paved. So that's where we stand right now with New Bridge Road. And also, you may be seeing our trucks are all getting re-lettered. They're looking very professional. And Scott and Craig, thank you. It looks very nice. And I think the residents will be happy to see that their vehicles look more professional out on the roadway. Other than that, that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to acknowledge the work that our Public Works and Craig did this past Wednesday, or last Wednesday, with the beach cleanup, and to thank also Ocean City for allowing us to use their machinery to sift through the sand and make sure that we've picked up a lot of the elements that was of concern. What I'd also like to acknowledge is that we have, through Deputy Mayor Barr and working with Craig, we have, and Barbara Ludi, we've compiled the man hours that it took to do that project. We'll also account for any expense that we have incurred by the use of the Ocean City machinery. And I'm happy to report that I received a letter or correspondence from the Deauville, and they will be reimbursing us for all that time. I had requested it, and they are acknowledging that they will reimburse the township for the hours that were put into that project. So that's good news. Craig, I don't know if you have anything to add. I'll call on you, but I know that you had said that based on my discussion with you, that it was a success and that we felt that we really had sifted through the sand and got a lot of the other remaining residue that was there.
Yes, sir, Mayor. What I was concerned about was removing the clay balls that showed up on the dredging project. When you move sand in that type of fashion, it's inevitable you're going to get some of these type of materials. As they sit on the beach, they dry out and become hard, and they're there for the duration. They don't go away anytime soon. So the best way to remove them is to run a barber rake. It has a conveyor belt with tines on it, and it removes all that debris. We decided to run all the way down to, I believe it was Randolph, where there was broken glass reported to show up, and return back. We raked the section from Randolph back up north to the dredge site, approximately 50 to 70 feet wide, to try to capture any of this material. When the material came back, we dumped it into one of our mini dump trucks, and I brought it back to Public Works. I was looking for broken glass and things of that nature, other than just clay balls, but the truck was 3/4 full of clay. I did not find broken glass myself in the truck itself. So was it a success? Yeah, it was. Those machines are awesome for cleaning the beach. So we did our due diligence to try to make it right.
Great, thank you. We appreciate the efforts. The only other thing I do, when we get to the marijuana/cannabis discussion, I do have a few things that I'd like to interject, but I'll wait for that. But I really was hoping that at some point we'd be able to get back to live meetings. I did hear, or I saw yesterday, that the governor announced that there will be no new openings in the very near future, meaning that no expansion beyond the restriction that's in place at this point. From what I understand, New Jersey has had a spike, maybe not in our area, but I suppose in the North Jersey area or somewhere in New Jersey. And so the governor has already made a statement that not to expect any new opening or relaxation of the current restrictions that are in place. So I'm sure we'll probably continue what we're doing at least through April. I'm sorry. And at any time where the relaxation of the regulations or restrictions go into place, we'll consider potentially having a live meeting. But at this point, I don't think it's of any value. There are a number of folks that have joined this call, and trying to accommodate them in a very restrictive seating in our township hall probably can't be at least achieved at this point. So just to give you a heads up on that, I'll be following that and further executive orders as they come along. So with that, I would ask that, Barbara, that we go into the resolutions at this point.
Okay, very good. Item number 3, authorizing the execution of a group affidavit governing body certification of compliance with the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's enforcement guidance on the consideration of arrest and conviction records in employment decisions under Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act 1964.
Move the resolution.
I'll second that.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
You're muted, John.
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried with all in favor. Item number 4, supporting Senate Bill number 3528, allowing parental notification of a minor's possession or purchase of alcoholic beverages or cannabis.
Move the resolution. Please.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 5, supporting legislation increasing state funding to the Shore Protection Fund from $25 million to $50 million pursuant to Act 639, 1071.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried with all in favor. Item number 6, strongly urging the County of Cape May to commence with the planned reconstruction of New Bridge Road in the Seaville section of the Township of Upper.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
7, approving the application of the Tuckahoe Volunteer Fire Company for highway coin drops.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
All right. 8, amending resolution number 12, 2021, appointing various officers and employees to annual and specific terms.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Barr?
Yes.
Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 9, amending resolution number 2021, confirming various positions required by the Atlantic County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Item number 10, amending resolution number 23, 2021, appointing members to the Upper Township Municipal Court Security Committee.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. 11, appointing Norman W. Briggs to act as special legal counsel.
Move the resolution.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 12, reappointing Paul Dietrich Sr. as municipal engineer effective April 1st, 2021.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. All in favor? 13, authorizing a contract amendment between the Township of Upper and KD National Force Security and Investigations LLC for additional professional security services.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. 14, authorizing a shared services agreement with the County of Cape May for emergency medical technician services at county COVID-19 vaccination sites.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
15, canceling and refunding tax on exempt property at Block 650, Lot 42.
Motion approved.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Item number 16, canceling and refunding tax on exempt property at Block 453.10, Lot 334.12.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. 17, authorize payments from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund of Upper Township.
Motion to authorize.
Second.
Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion carried. All in favor? 18, authorizing the purchase of dune grass with funds from the 2008 Capital Improvement Bond Ordinance in the amount of $2,340.
Motion
Move
to
the
authorize.
resolution.
Second.
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 Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. All in favor? 19, authorizing the purchase of certain items through the Sourcewell National Cooperative Contract with funds from the 2020 Capital Improvement Bond Ordinance in the amount of $125,476.65.
Motion to authorize.
Second.
Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. All in favor? 20, revised 2021 temporary budget.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Carried. 21, adopting the repetitive loss area analysis for the Township of Upper.
Motion to
Move
adopt.
the resolution. Second.
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Carried. 22, public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 5, 2021, and ordinance amending revised general ordinance, chapter 4 of the Code of Upper Township to regulate the towing and storage of motor vehicles by the township. This is a public hearing.
Before I open it up to the public, is there any final thoughts from any of the committee members?
Just to put this ordinance
No,
in
Mayor.
context, just so you understand it, and maybe the public understands it, is to allow towing to occur on illegally or abandoned cars in the township. It provides a mechanism to allow our CFO to send out a request for bids, and it sets forth the requirements of those bids in general terms. It's this type of ordinance, in order to have cars towed in the township, this type of ordinance is required under state statute.
Okay. Curtis, did you have any thoughts or no?
We need to put it in place. We need it.
All right, so if there's no other comments from the Township Committee, I'll open it up to the public. If anyone would like to address this ordinance 5, 2021, now's the time to do so. I would ask that you unmute yourself, acknowledge that you would like to address the Township Committee, state your name and your address, and your reason for addressing only this public hearing portion of the meeting.
Yes, this is David Cummings, 1808 Commonwealth Avenue, Strathmere. I understand this ordinance indicates that only certain people can initiate towing. Scott Morgan, the state police, and a parking officer. I was curious to know what's the status of the discussions with Ocean City to adopt some sort of support for Strathmere around parking enforcement for the next season.
If I may answer that, Mayor?
Yes, please.
That the township considered various options for parking enforcement. The most appropriate option at this point is to appoint parking enforcement officers. And if you look above in the agenda, the amendment to the KD National Security Investigations LLC contract, they will be providing parking enforcement officers, which are essentially most of them are police officers under a contract amendment with the township.
So if any of the residents at Strathmere had a concern about parking and towing, there would be a mechanism for them to understand how to contact these people and start the towing process, if that's appropriate?
Well, they will be present at times in Strathmere, or you could contact the township administrator if there's a towing issue. Not all illegally parked cars are appropriate to be towed. That's a judgment that has to be made in terms of safety.
Yes, I understand that, but the towing requires somebody to be physically present to observe it and then initiate the towing process. Is that
The
correct?
parking enforcement officer would do that, or as the ordinance indicates, it would be the township administrator. State police can also do it, but they generally don't tow unless there's something like a DUI or an accident, and they use their own state contracts for towing when they do it under the state statute. That's why we are implementing this, because they would not do municipal street towing if it was required, nor county roadway towing if it was required.
Okay, well, I mean, I think the residents of Strathmere certainly support this, given our experience last year, but we also want to see an efficient system. So if it's got too much bureaucracy and it takes too much time to respond and we don't end up doing the right thing in terms of towing, I think that's the concern, at least some of the concerns that we have. So thank you.
Okay. Ms. Carr, I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. Mine is, I think, a follow-on.
Wait. You need to state your name and your address for the record.
My apologies. My name is Lisa Carr. My address is 33 East Webster in Strathmere.
Thank you.
I think my questions and comments are a follow-on to what David Cummings was asking. I read the ordinance, and I think it's a great step. And based on the conversation between Mr. Young and Mr. Cummings, I think I have some of an understanding, but I really don't understand the administrative or operational process here. And I think the residents need to understand what's going on and how it works. So I think I heard there's going to be a parking enforcement officer. Are they full-time? Do we have a phone number to call them? So I don't want to ramble, but I just don't think we understand the process. Perhaps you all do. And someone could put that in writing or explain it to us further tonight. Because otherwise, I think people are going to be calling Scott Morgan nonstop to ask for cars to be towed.
Well, let me just say this, and Dan, you can jump in. This ordinance allows us to put a process in place. If we elect not to move forward with this ordinance, then no process can take place. So, I think we have a good handle on utilizing the folks that Mr. Young had talked about. I would say that, that potentially they'll be there more on weekends than during the week when Mr. Morgan will be available for people to reach out to. So, I don't know that we really drill down to the fine details at this point, but this ordinance is necessary so that we can do that.
Well,
I don't know if that answers the question.
If there's a parking issue, if there's a parking issue, just like last year or whatever, the first step is to call 911 is Ocean City Police. They dispatch the state police, and they will be in radio contact with our parking enforcement people. That would be the proper procedure, just no different than last year. Except this year, hopefully it'll be a response in a more timely fashion.
So I want to thank you for answering my questions. I want to also say that I support this ordinance because I see that as the path to move forward. And I guess that ultimately, as we move forward between now and the beginning of the season, if there could be more information, whether it's verbal or in writing, as to how to best approach this, including whether or not there are going to be people on the island on the weekends investigating and giving out tickets or arranging for towing, would be appreciated. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the Township Committee during this public hearing portion?
Mayor, the lines have been unmuted.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
This is Randy Roche, 124 Prescott Street in Strathmere.
Okay, Randy.
Hi. I've been engaged in multiple conversations, some with you, Rich, in person, about flood mitigation programs.
Yeah, Randy, that we're going to discuss that. You'll be able to discuss it at the public portion of the meeting. This is just specifically to an ordinance that we're asking for input right now.
I'm sorry. I joined the meeting late. I apologize.
No problem.
I'll put myself on mute.
No problem. Anyone else that would like to address specifically this ordinance 5/2021 with respect to towing and storage of motor vehicles by the township? All right, so Paul, everyone's unmuted. Everyone's had an opportunity to voice if they have any comments, correct?
Correct. Everybody's been unmuted the entire public portion of this request.
Dan, you're okay with me closing the public portion?
Yes, I'm fine.
Okay, let the record reflect that there's no additional public comment. I'll close the public hearing portion of this and entertain a motion for adoption.
Move we adopt our ordinances.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. All in favor?
Barb, before we move on, Mayor, could we get a authorization to go out to bid for the towing services? So we can have a resolution at our next meeting to do that process. I can start working with Barb, Scott, and Katie Nashville and setting up the proper bidding specs so we can put this project out to bid to have it available for the summer season.
I'll make that
Yes.
motion that we have a resolution in the next meeting to allow it to be put out to bid.
Second.
Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
and Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion
Thank
is
you, ma'am.
carried. All in favor? Okay, moving on. Item number 23, public hearing and final adoption of ordinance number 6, 2021, and ordinance amending revised general ordinance, chapter 7, traffic of the Code of Upper Township.
Again, any comments from the committee before I open it up for public hearing?
I'm good, Mayor.
Okay. All right, so at this time, I'll open it up. If anyone would like to address this ordinance 6/2021 with respect to traffic, now's the time to do so. Please unmute, state your name and your address and your reason to comment on the public hearing portion of this particular ordinance.
Everyone is unmuted, Mayor.
Daniel, all right with time?
Yes, if no one's indicated on screen or otherwise that they wanted to speak, we're good to go.
Okay, so I would like the record to reflect that there was no public comment during the public hearing of this ordinance. I'll close the public hearing portion of this and entertain a motion for adoption of ordinance 6/2021.
Move we adopt ordinance number 6, 2021.
Second.
All right, would you
Barr?
call the roll, please?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Carried. All in favor? Item number 24, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 9, 2021, and ordinance authorizing sale of land split block 414, lot 39.12. And if we move forward, we could have the adoption of this ordinance on April 26th, the public hearing and adoption.
Okay, someone like to make that motion?
Motion to adopt.
No, introduce.
I'm sorry, motion to introduce. My apologies.
No problem. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second it. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. All in favor? Item number 24, under new business, American Legion, Aaron Whitcamp, Caldwell, Post 239, request to hold raffle number 538 at the Heritage Links Golf Course at 1375 Route 9 on July 31st, 2021.
Move we approve it.
Second.
Second.
Barr,
Yes.
Coggins,
Yes.
Mr. Corson,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo.
Yes.
Motion is carried. All in favor? Item number 26, under unfinished business, discussion on marijuana dispensaries.
So I'll open up the discussion and then we can certainly have many to interject. There's a couple things I think we need to point out to everybody. One, this is a land use issue that probably has to go before the planning board anyway. And my suggestion would be that in the event, just, to cover our bases, that we send this to the planning board for their input. Curtis and I both serve on that planning board. So it's something that needs to be done. If we discuss about, putting an ordinance together, it still would have to go to the planning board anyway. So, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's my read on it.
It's primarily the issues that we would be addressing with an ordinance are primarily land use. And under the state land use law, all land use ordinances have to be sent to the planning board for consistency. They can occur after you introduce an ordinance or as you draft it and send it to the planning board. However, our experience and our tradition is when we have a land use issue is to send them to the planning board, have them review it. There are times, it's rare, but there are times when the township committee says to the board, I'm sorry, I don't agree with the way you've crafted this section of the ordinance or whatever, and we change it, and then we send it back to them. So that does happen on occasion. But most of the time when we do it, our traditional procedure is to send the land use questions to the planning board and then act on them after we get some type of input. I will tell you that the master plan reexamination did address this in a very general way and address whether we should ban or not ban and kind of punt it to the future. That master plan reexamination was prepared by the planning board, and it was they hired a professional planner to do it. That was about a year, 2 years ago that occurred. So it's not unusual to send to the planning board initially. That doesn't mean you can't discuss it. It doesn't mean you can't make suggestions. It's just something that under the law, they have to issue what's called a consistency report. They have to compare whatever the ordinance is, whether you drafted it or they drafted it, and compare that to the master plan, and then say, yes, it's consistent with our master plan, or no, it's not. You can still pass an ordinance if it's not consistent with your master plan. I believe the language in our master plan and master plan reexamination report with respect to regulation of cannabis and marijuana is broad enough that any choice you make to regulate it would be deemed consistent. However, you got to take that step. The planning board has to actually respond to that and issue a resolution saying it is consistent, it's not. So I'm sorry to be sort of long-winded, but I assume that's what you wanted.
I think what I'd like to do is to frame different things just to educate not only the township committee, but also the public as to, where all this should be in the discussion. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up is is that, recently we tabled a resolution, an ordinance before its introduction because we felt that there should be more public input. And I think that's something that the planning board might be able to accomplish through, some sort of committee. I think it's really, and again, I'm not advocating pro or con. I'm just stating facts for everybody to comprehend. In the vote in Upper Township, I think this is important. 8,156 people cast their ballots or voted on the ballot question. 5,410 voted yes to legalize marijuana compared to 2,746 that were opposed. So it was a 2-to-1 margin, more than 2,000 votes, almost 3,000 votes, 2,500 votes voted in favor beyond those that were opposed. So it was a 2-to-1 margin. So I think that's important to at least know how the public voted. Okay, there is also I think that needs to be brought up is that we talked about the planning board, we talked about the vote. There's also potential revenue that could come the township way. And again, I'm not saying that I am in favor or opposed. I'm just stating the facts as they come along. The statute allows for 2%, and this certainly probably isn't a reason for us to ever approve or disapprove, but there's a potential for revenue for the township. There is also a restriction in the statute that says that we can't restrict delivery into the township. So if we decide to oppose having a dispensary, the statute still allows for delivery into the township, and obviously it still allows for the personal use because it's legalized, and so we have to take that into consideration as well. And so with a lot of the things that are lead to this discussion, we need to also know the timelines. So the statute reads that by, I believe it's August the 15th, I was going to say for our own purposes, let's say August the 1st, we have to have an ordinance in place. If we are opposed to it, it needs to be in place by August the 1st. And in the real date
You
is
need
like,
to have it adopted by the 22nd. The deadline
what
was
is it, August the 22nd?
by August 20th. I'm sorry, August 20th. But
So
I would
August 20th
suggest,
is the drop dead date.
frankly, you don't want to be late. You don't want to be up against the wall and scrambling
Yeah,
at the
up
end.
against the wall, and
Yes,
we
that-
don't pass it in time. That means we have no way of restricting it for the next 5 years if we decide we don't want the dispensary. If we don't have an ordinance in place, nothing can stop an individual from coming in and having the dispensary for the next 5 years. It appears that if we pass an ordinance in opposition, we will still have an opportunity at a later date to re-examine that ordinance, and if it is determined that it's something that, because of public outcry or whatever, we want to change that, it appears, at least at this point, from a legal standpoint, that you're able to revise the ordinance so that you don't have to wait a 5-year period. In other words, if we oppose, you can potentially move forward within that 5-year period if you just decide to change your mind. If you don't oppose it, then there's no opportunity for us to oppose it during that five-year window. So, there are a lot of things I think that are really important for us to make in the decision. And I do think some public input is important because of the fact that the vote unanimously, there's no other way of putting it, on a 2-to-1 margin passed it in Upper Township. Voters spoke. We have 10,494 registered voters in the Township of Upper, of which 8,156 cast their vote in the November election. And again, the numbers speak for themselves. 5,410 voted to support the legalization of cannabis, and 2,746 did not. So that's kind of what I wanted to start this discussion on, that there are a lot of facts that are out there. There's a lot of things to consider. I realize this is a little bit different subject, but the reality is in the past, the committee has responded to how the citizens responded with their vote. And so that's why I think the public needs to have some input before any decision is made. But I also think it's important that we take the step to move forward with an opposition ordinance, at least at this point, and send it to the planning board for their input. So with that, I'll open it up for discussion.
Rich,
how are the
Mayor,
other?
I do agree with you on the 180 days.
Wait a second, one at a time.
One at a time.
Mayor, I agree with you on the 180 days. We do have to look at that as our timeline, as we've discussed before. It should go before the zoning board, but we do have to look at the 180 days. And to give us, what's that, Dan?
It's the planning board that has
Yeah,
to go.
there's 180. Yeah, but it goes before the planning board, but still the clock is ticking, and we have 180 days to introduce a ordinance and adopt an ordinance if we decide we want to opt out or opt in. I had the opportunity to go on the League of Municipalities website. Very informative. They have a draft ordinance to opt out. What I found is exactly what the mayor was talking about. This is going to be something new. It's not something you want to rush into right away. And what the League of Municipalities is recommending is that you do have an ordinance already drafted. You go before your zoning board, you see where your zoning lies with this. If you start to come up against 180 days and you need more time, it's prudent that you opt out. In opting out, it states that you're going to control or prohibit the sale of marijuana within your jurisdiction. But it also leaves the door open that you can always opt in whenever you want to. But it's prudent that we look at this, make a well-formed decision before we decide that we definitely don't want to have any type of sales within the town. The mayor made a strong point. I mean, unfortunately, yeah, marijuana is legal. I was a police officer for 30 years, and I did a lot of arrests as far as marijuana is concerned. But I look at it just like alcohol. We had prohibition at one time. Alcohol is legal again. We're back in the early 1900s with prohibition again. And yes, it's legal, but we have to come up with ways on how we're going to control it. And most importantly, we have to have public input.
Okay. Kim.
So Dan, I have a question. I'm reading a number of municipalities are passing ordinances for blanket bans from their council or their committee. It's not their planning board that's passing that. So I guess I'm not understanding how that's working.
I don't know what the other municipalities are doing specifically, but I know it's a land use ordinance and it has to go under the state statute to the planning board for consistency report. I know Ocean City routinely does it with their land use ordinances. I expect that they did it with this. It's not a police ordinance. For example, our no parking ordinance that we adopted tonight, it's not a land use ordinance, it's a police enforcement ordinance. What we would be doing would be regulating a use in the township, okay? And uses in the township, such as, give you an example, campgrounds, except for one zone, I think campgrounds are non-conforming uses. That was adopted through an amendment to the land use ordinance, and it's part of the master plan, and it's part of the zoning ordinance. So that's what it is, and by law, we have to send it. Now, you don't have to, there's no law that says that you have to ask the planning board to review this now. What has to happen is that if you introduce an ordinance or you plan to introduce an ordinance, before you can adopt it, if it's a land use ordinance, you have to send it to the planning board for consistency. So you have the right to do it yourself. You could take similar to the sample that the league provided and just ban it and say to the planning board, look, we want to do this now. Give us a consistency report.
Okay. Where would the public comment happen under that ordinance? Would it come back to this body for public comment, or
both places?
It would be two places. When it goes to the planning board, their meetings are public. they would, before they adopt an ordinance, not adopt an ordinance, adopt a resolution recommending or not recommending something, there would be a public comment. The public would go and talk to them. The reason that the law, the state statute sets this up is the planning board has to implement and apply those ordinances. So you want input from the person that created your master plan and said, this is the zone that we want this in, this is the zone. You want input from that. That if we did it separately, it could be suspect. There could be presumption of non-consistency or invalid. You can override. If they say it's inconsistent, all we need is a supermajority of the township committee to override it. So you can override if they say they don't like it.
Right. So I mean, I hear what Rich is saying, you know, that was a large number of people in Upper Township who voted for legalization. I personally didn't, but I know a number of people who did. I think that this law in its current state is grossly flawed everywhere from parental notification, which, you know, we passed a resolution on tonight. You know, so there's really no allowance for people to grow their own, you know, for homegrown, which I think a lot of people are disappointed in. So I think at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we ban the sale of marijuana in Upper Township.
First of all, we're not prepared to do that because it has to be done by an ordinance. Second of all, I do not want to put an ordinance together that quickly could change based on legislative changes that are already in place to try and revise, propose revisions. So I think what we should do, and this is my idea, and I'm open, you know, it's 3 votes, but you can't just say you vote, it would be you vote to introduce an ordinance at a later date, you know, to move forward with it. My opinion is rather than, you know, based on what happened recently with introducing an ordinance where we had a public outcry and everyone decided that we tabled it. Okay, I'd like to see if we can somehow generate some public input. We have ample time to pass an ordinance. If we set the goal of the second meeting in June, we will make that, you know, by 40 days. If we set it to the second meeting in July, I would rather not. I'd rather do the first meeting in July. We will certainly make the August 20th deadline. I just think that based on some of our past experiences or recent past experiences, I really believe we should have public input. And part of it is the majority of people voted to support the legalization.
Which is why I would like the motion.
Any other ordinance on any other vote, we'd be saying, I guess we need to support this going forward. But because of the nature of it, because of our need to be responsible as you know, leaders of the committee, I'm not necessarily saying we should do one or the other. I'm saying let's have some discussion on it, and then we can introduce an ordinance, and we can go from there.
So what's the plan to have the discussion on it? Because I don't think having a committee is the right idea, because, you know, that obviously didn't bring in enough public discussion in the last issue. So that's why I'm saying maybe a formal position where we open up public discussion would be the best way to get the
we can have a workshop on it, and we can have and ask the public to potentially discuss it. But I think the public needs to be educated as to, you know, a lot of the nuances and the things that will be required and the things that have issue with the township. And again, you know, I reiterate that there actually is a clause in there where there's a revenue opportunity for the township. We don't normally I don't know of any other ordinance that we've been involved with other than the shared services where we've gotten revenue based on an ordinance. So, you know, I just think there's a lot there. And rather than just go ahead and do this and then have to come back and revise it, or look for further explanation, you know, we should take some time to step back and get public input, because obviously it won by a 2-to-1 margin. So there are people that, you know, have some thoughts on it, and I don't think they just voted for the sake of voting for it.
No, but I think they're all very disappointed in the law in its current state. And you know, and the 2%, I know that, you know, that sounds like
that is up to our legislators to change.
In the long term. It absolutely is, you know, but we have to, you know, which I'm sure you'll agree, do what's in the best interest of the township. So that 2% does sound like a great revenue.
I do, but I also listen to what the voters have to say too, and I think that is important to consider.
That absolutely is. I agree.
I have a couple comments here.
Go
I
ahead,
think
Curtis.
the voters voted on marijuana and, recreational use, whatever. But I don't think the voters voted on putting a pot shop in Upper Township. And that's where my problem arises. We are no more set up and prepared for that to have a dispensary anywhere in this township. We don't have local police. That's going to be the next thing. I mean, this is going to be attractive nuisance. It's going to bring people into our community that wouldn't normally be here. And we have to protect our children. Some people, it's the smell of marijuana and the smoke from marijuana is toxic and not healthy for children or animals, obviously. But some people find it toxic. I mean, we're going to have. I've been to states where it's been legalized, and you can't walk down the street without smelling dope. It's horrible. We got our. You mentioned campgrounds are. Campgrounds are going to address it. The thing is, they're private property, so they can be addressed in campground. And my question is, with this pot tax, Dan, you might be able to answer this. That's money derived from the sale of drugs, correct?
Well, that's a gray area. If you're going into the federal state, yeah, exactly. But my knowledge, the states that have adopted and legalized cannabis and marijuana, the federal government has not gotten involved. But that is a thorny issue with respect to federal enforcement, because the laws on the books could be argued they're federal laws being violated. However, to my knowledge, none of those laws have been enforced in states where it's been legalized.
Right. And again, Curtis, I'm not necessarily saying I'm in favor of having any dispensary. I'm not. I'm just bringing out everything for discussion. Okay. I don't necessarily, I'm probably not in favor of it. But I will say that the one thing that we're not going to be able to stop is the influx of marijuana or cannabis. I think cannabis is the key term going forward, because you can't stop delivery and you can't stop personal use. So even if Ocean City is a dry town, they're still allowed to bring alcohol in to drink. They're still allowed to have it delivered in Ocean City. And that's the same thing that's going to happen to us. So yes, maybe you as a private campground can prevent somebody from smoking in the campground, but we can't prevent anyone to smoke it in their house. That's how the statute says. That's what the statute says.
And I understand that, but our kids are going to. If one was built in Upper Township, it's going to be on the main corridor. Our children get to see that every day on the school bus. Our grandchildren. I mean, it's not what I want to see. I've been to these states where it's legal. It's not a pretty sight.
If I may, can I clarify the procedure before anyone else talks? I want to make sure that everybody understands it. Ordinarily, you got to put an ordinance introduction on the agenda. So what the Township Committee does is they set their agenda, and Kim's intent would be formed in a motion to have a outright ban of all aspects that you're legally able to ban, put on an agenda item for introduction. That would, you get somebody that, if you move that and you get somebody to second it, then the majority passes it, then it goes on the next agenda. Then what happens? All right, well, let me just go through with the procedure so you understand. If you decide to go forward with that, because it is a land use law, okay, it would then, upon introduction, be sent for a consistency report. I believe it's 45 days to the planning board. So the planning board still would have to review it. It's not like we're doing anything we otherwise wouldn't have done. It's just they would do it after you introduced it, and then they would have to respond back. And they would have a hearing. They would go through that same whole process where they would look at it and is it consistent? Is it not consistent? I believe a ban would be consistent. I know what the master plan says generally, and a ban would be consistent, so I believe it would be. If they don't respond within 45 days, then you can move forward without their consistency report. They've generally been very responsive, depending upon when it's sent over. Sometimes we've actually asked them, because we need to fast track something, we've asked them to respond with a special meeting because we need it in there. So that's the procedure. And you would, if it goes to if you send it to the planning board first, we would, and I think the mayor was alluding to this, you would want to give them a deadline so you have enough time to have it debated and introduced and adopted before that August date. So you can do it either way. I mean, but
I think, I know that the way to address it is through a land use, ordinance, but I think that this issue encompasses so many other things. It's so far reaching that it's important that we give the planning board some guidance from this body. I don't think that it's something we should put solely in the planning board's lap. I mean, it's not really just an issue.
Kim, I don't think we're putting it in the zoning board's lap. I think what it does is it's going to help us to vet this. It's going to help us to vet this issue through two channels. I mean, the zoning board's going to have public comment, and we're going to have public comment. And by doing that, we're going to get a feel for what the public, the people that we represent, want. Not what I want, not what you want, not what Curtis's wants. It's what our people want. There are a lot of issues with this. Kim, let me talk. There's a lot of issues with that. There are arrest, search, and seizure issues as far as a police officer is concerned. All right. When the legislature passes a law, who gets stuck with having to enforce it? Police officers. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. We got to vet this. We vet this. You got to separate. You got to separate the sale of the marijuana with the arrest, search, and seizure laws. If we send it to the zoning board, let the zoning board have their hearings, and we get an educated decision here. We get people that are out in the public that aren't sitting right here right now are going to show up at those meetings, and we're going to get a better feel so that we can make the right decisions. All right, that's where I come from. I'd rather us play this out, get a lot of input, instead of Mr. Barlow tomorrow having it on the front page of the paper that says we're banning it. I mean, let's take time. All right, we're not Ocean City. We don't have blue laws. I mean, they have their blue laws. They already don't sell liquor. So we're not Ocean City. Let's just relax and let it go through the proper channels.
I'm looking at a
maybe you guys are misunderstanding where I'm coming from here. Obviously this group here isn't where I'm getting all of my input from. I'm out in the community, and you all know how passionate I am about this because I've spoken to each one of you individually about it.
Oh, absolutely.
So that this is not something that I'm coming out of, just not talking to anybody and having personal opinion. This is, definitely taking into consideration the people that have put me here to represent them. I just think that, it's important for us to give the planning board some guidance from this body. And, if you disagree, that's absolutely your right to disagree with me, but that's just where I stand on it.
Well, like Dan Young said earlier, if we introduce an ordinance or vote to introduce an ordinance, it's going to go to the planning board anyhow.
Yes.
And
from us.
So I don't have a problem with it.
I think that to me, the prudent process is to do how we've done it consistently, is move it to the planning board, give them a drop dead deadline to get back to us, having their public hearing and having a response. I think everyone's cognizant of the time. It's not something, if it had to be done tomorrow or yesterday, we'd be in a different frame of mind. But I do think the one thing that keeps coming back at me, and it doesn't mean that I am not I would probably say I'm 90% in agreement with having an ordinance opposing, a facility, but I just keep coming back to the fact that the overwhelming majority of the township supported it. Okay. And I think that has to be taken into consideration. I'm not saying that we're going to live by that, but I'm also saying that we, at least as elected officials, deserve to hear from them before we move forward.
And the ones that I'm speaking to are unhappy with the law in its current form. The ones who did
that. That's pretty obvious because 2,746 voted against it. And maybe the majority of them are your friends and people that support you. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying there is a large quantity of people that did support it. And that's why I'm going to make sure that
voted for it or unhappy.
But they did not vote to support a pot shop in their neighborhood.
Curtis, I don't argue with that. I agree with you there. But they also be ones that I would think that would at least like to have input. Maybe we'll get an overwhelming majority to say, no, we don't want it. And then our job is done and very easy to move forward with an ordinance. But I'm just saying, it makes sense to hear from the public.
And that's exactly what I would like to do. But as I said, I think that the guidance should come from us to the planning board, but if you disagree with that, that's okay.
Well, I think by the fact
where are we with the timeline?
I'm sorry, you both talk. One at a time, please.
Where are we with the timeline as far as the 180 days is concerned?
But it's August 20 is the drop dead date, which would mean you'd need to introduce, refer it to the planning board, and then adopt after the planning board has responded, or the planning board doesn't respond within the 45-day period ask them about.
What happens if somebody tries to open one between now and then?
Someone does what, Curtis? I'm sorry?
Tries to open one within 180 days.
You can't. The regulations are.
The law doesn't allow for it, Curtis.
The regulations are in place.
And we're also in that if we ban it in the 180 days, we can always repeal it. But if we don't, then we're stuck with it for 5 years.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of reasons.
Unfortunately, I hope that we don't see prime trucks going back and forth delivering, because that could very well happen. I might add to that. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, because they're involved with prescriptions and everything else. So it's only a matter of time before they get involved with that, especially in a state that is legalized, I would think. So,
right.
John, do you have something to say? I'm sorry.
Yes, I think by the fact that we're having this discussion this evening is going to generate some public comment in the meetings to come, and I'm happy to hear that. But I also think, despite the fact that there was an overwhelming majority of people who were voting in favor of legalization of marijuana, it doesn't necessarily mean that a marijuana dispensary is right for the community that we have here. People voted to decriminalize it. People have voted to legalize marijuana because of the lives of people who have been ruined, who have been children who have gone to jail and served time and gotten in with the wrong type of people for having a small quantity. So things like that are a good reason to vote in support of the marijuana legalization. I don't necessarily think that it is wrong for people who choose to use it, who are of a certain age, and decide that, okay, well, this is something as an adult that they may choose to do. But I still don't necessarily feel that having this type of industry within our township is a real good idea, especially because of the fact that we're seeing many of our neighboring communities who are very much aggressively pushing to ban the sale of it within their community. It's going to turn the township into more of a destination, or as Curtis stated earlier, an attractive nuisance.
Agreed.
I'm very much in favor of public input, and for us to have had this discussion here tonight, I think is going to open up the forum to allow us to hear what the public feels about it.
Exactly.
I agree.
Yep.
That's why all these facts were put out this evening. But it's a reason why I don't necessarily think that we should be doing an ordinance right away without some input from individuals. We can't just assume what people think. I'll vote on an ordinance. I don't think it's prudent at this time. I don't want to ever jeopardize anybody. My grandkids live in the township. Okay, so I have reasons beyond that, but I also think that we need to get and hear what people have to say. And if it's a resounding no, then it makes our jobs really easy. But what worries me is if it's not, and we try to figure out a way to get around it, I think we need to know that answer. I also think, and John, I thought the point that you made, are there other communities? Well, I know the mayor, Tim Donahue of Middle, has already come out to say that they're going to support and have a facility. I don't know
Well,
what
they-
Summers Point's
I
doing.
thought they were going to have a medical facility in Middle Township.
I think they're also looking at the revenue. I thought I saw something. They're also looking at the revenue potential for having a regular dispensary. Okay, so, and I don't know what Summers Point is doing. I don't know what some of the other
Summers Point
communities,
is
it really
voting
shouldn't
no.
matter to us what other communities are doing. But the fact is that there'll be deliveries and there'll still be personal use. And, you know, I think ultimately we're going to land on the decision to ban it. But, you know, let's take a due process. You know, maybe we've learned our lesson from a couple meetings ago on what due process means and listen to what the public has to say.
Well, part of that,
That's right.
I mean, a couple of meetings ago, we introduced the ordinance. Okay, it went nowhere. We tabled it. If an ordinance is introduced tonight, we have wasted nothing.
Right.
But
We
a little
can't
bit of
introduce an
time.
ordinance tonight. We don't have an ordinance to introduce.
No, if we make a motion to get one introduced, we introduce an ordinance. We can always scrap it.
I think it's a good way to get the conversation started, and it gives some guidance from this whole committee, from this entire committee to the planning board, rather than just the individuals who are on the planning board.
I mean, Summers Point actually it came out and opposed to it, I believe.
They
I mean,
did.
Middle Township, they're in favor of it. Middle Township has one big asset we don't. It's called a police department. How are we going to police this?
I'm not suggesting one municipality over another. I'm just putting facts out there. And all I ask is we don't need to do an ordinance in a week or, you know, it doesn't matter. We have plenty of time to make the ordinance. Plenty of time. And maybe this is a
Yes.
time to see what the public has to say.
Well,
I'm only one vote, so you guys can kind of know where I'm going to go.
I made a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any further discussion before we vote?
Could we just clarify what your motion is, Kim? Is the motion to ask Dan to draft an ordinance banning the dispensing of marijuana within the confines of the township?
Yes,
Also to kick it to the planning board for their review, right?
yes.
Was that before we pass the ordinance or after? Because that to me is important. I would vote in favor of it if it does get to the planning board first.
Well, it
I
has
think
to
she
go to
wants
the
to-
planning board before you adopt it.
Land use, right? So it has to go to them first, is what you said, Dan, right?
Yeah, but I think the question
correct.
is,
Yes.
I think the question is, if I understand it correctly, are you going to send it to the planning board before you introduce it? Or are you going to send it to the planning board after it is introduced, but before adoption?
Well,
So
after-
I guess, you Kim, what's your motion?
I would like to do it after it's introduced, before adoption, because I'd like for us to get the public input. And maybe it stops there after the public input. It never has to go to the planning board. If,
No,
you know,
we won't
the
have a public hearing on an introduction. We'll have a public hearing on the final adoption. That's all we do with the ordinances. So the
Yeah, we'll
public
have
input
public-
will come with the planning board first anyway.
Yes.
And then what does it
We'll have
matter?
Public input there's probably going to be public tonight comment.
Right.
For purposes of procedure, I think everyone's clear what Kim's motion was. Curtis, do you second that?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes,
Take the
let me
motion one
just,
more
let me
time.
just repeat this. Let me repeat it so I make sure I have it
Right,
straight
thank
for the
you.
minute. Okay, so this motion is to move forward with an ordinance to ban dispensaries in Upper Township, to send to the planning board after the introduction and before the final adoption.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, but more specifically, it
The
is to
zoning board.
introduce the ordinance and then forward it to the planning board. In other words,
Planning
introduce it.
board, correct,
Yeah, planning board,
yes.
which is what you do with all land use ordinances. It's not,
Right.
So, you know, I'm hoping that the public comment portion of that meeting will spark some conversation about that. Even if it's not, you know, we're not taking it individually, I would assume that people will join that meeting to discuss it.
Mr. Barr?
Can't hear him.
I couldn't hear you,
With
Ed.
those stipulations, I vote yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
With those stipulations, I vote yes.
Very good. Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
I vote yes with the stipulation that after it's introduced, it goes to the planning board before final adoption. Because I think a process needs to continue in this discussion.
Agreed.
Good. Motion is carried. Item number 27, under discussion, Beasley's Point Boat Ramp. And
Paul?
Paul has some things he'd like to discuss, and I have asked for this to be on the agenda because this time of year, right about now, is when we start to receive applications for boat ramp permits, and we start the process to prepare for the boat ramp to be open with our boat ramp attendants and selling permits for the boat ramp. And Mr. Dietrich has some information on the boat ramp that I think may prohibit that.
Yeah, because I think it's very pertinent as to how we should handle the sales of the boat ramp going forward for this particular year only. So Paul, I know that you have gotten prices for permitting from the DEP to reconstruction and to potentially dredge the boat ramp.
Right. Yeah. After talking with Ed, I guess about a week ago now, looking at the cost of dredging, I did get a price from a consultant to do the permitting required for that. Looking at close to $15,000 to $20,000. He can submit a formal proposal, but he was kind of giving us the ballpark estimate to keep the project moving, and that would allow us to dredge out into. I don't think we would be able to get quite out to the channel. Have had some discussions with the with the consultant and the state DEP regarding the process. And really what drives the cost of that permitting is the amount of testing you have to do is based on the volume of dredging you do. So the more dredging you do, the more testing you have to do, which drives that permitting cost. So I'm looking at we're going to need at least $15,000 to $20,000 to apply for the dredging permit, and then after that, we'll have to look at we'll discuss with Barb Ludy on construction costs and what those were to see where we can evaluate the cost for the permitting. On a second, so we need to discuss that and if we want to move forward with that. But irregardless of moving forward with the boat ramp, the boat ramp usage is impacted by the construction of the Beasley's Point Park area, which, as you know, is going to require reconstruction of the parking area, construction of a boardwalk and access way along the beach area, and then a multi-use path along Harbor Road out to Shore Road. So during the project, probably starting over the next week and a half until the end of June, there's going to be significant times where the parking is not going to be available for boats to utilize the boat ramp. We could still have the boat ramp open as a use at your own risk kind of a thing at certain times, but there would be no parking available at the facility. So, while the contractor wasn't working, if you wanted to come on down on a Saturday because you were launching your boat to put it into the water because you're going to have it, parked, somewhere outside of the township or in Summers Point or at a different marina, you could still come down there, launch your boat, and then take your truck and trailer home, and then pick the person up after they've moored their boat at another location, not going out for fishing. So, that is something that we need to do. And because of that time period, Barb's concerned that if we're issuing permits for boat ramps, essentially a third of the boat ramp permit season would not be available to have parking for the boat ramp. So that's kind of where we're at now to have this final discussion.
So I think there are a couple things we need to consider. One is, do we put it at a reduced rate. Barbara, what is the seasonal rate? $50, I think.
That would take an ordinance, yes. Yes, it's $50 for the resident. Excuse me, I'm sorry. My paper's on the floor here. It's $50 for a resident before May 31st. And then it goes up to $75 after June 1st for resident. Non-resident is $100 on or before May 31st and $150 on or after June 1st.
Right. So there's two things. One, do we consider a reduced rate for this year only because the usage is going to be limited, hopefully from just July 1st on? And the second question is we're still going to need attendance. If it's not in June, we're certainly going to need them in July. So a boat ramp attendance. So the question is, John, you're our revenue and finance guy. I mean, I'm looking to at least, if it's 50 and 75 or 100 and 150, I would say that we keep $50 in place for residents for the whole season, whether they get it early or not. And the likelihood is they're not going to get it early knowing they can't use it.
Can I have a suggestion? Because I'm thinking about draft the ordinance or the change to the ordinance. This could happen in any where all of a sudden access or because of repairs or maintenance or damage that the boat ramp becomes unavailable. So why don't we just prorate whatever date and the ramp becomes available and just do an ordinance and say if the ramp and parking is not available, then there will be no fee charged until such time as it is available.
Well, the only question I have with the prorate is we have preseason amounts and seasonal amounts. So we're going to get to the point.
That's something that would cover that. It would just basically, you're not going to, I guess if they do preseason and they buy it, you may have to issue them a refund. Sorry, Barb Ludy may have to get a resolution to allow them to do that, right?
Look, she's shaking her head. She doesn't want to do that. I mean, listen, I'm looking to make this as easy as process as possible.
But I'm concerned that there's going to be a delay and the numbers you pick are not going to make sense, I guess. The numbers that the township committee pick are not going to make sense. If there is a delay in when it's delivered. Let's say it goes the end of July, beginning.
But my only concern is a prorate from 75 for a resident could potentially be more money than the $50 preseason. And I would venture to say when the word gets out that they're not going to be able to use it, prior to July, I'm not so sure we're going to have a lot of preseason people. And besides, how do you prorate it until we get to when we know it's going to be open in the first place?
Yes.
Maybe what we can do is when we get the application or the applicant comes forward to purchase his boat ramp pass, just let them know what the story is. Say, the price hasn't changed, but this is what's going to happen. We've got 2 other boat ramps that are going to be open. But this Beasley's Point boat ramp is going to be closed until some point in July, whatever that may be, Paul. I don't know what that date is.
They're already coming in. We're already receiving applications. And then another thing is we also have where they can purchase a daily permit. So, what?
Well, I really think that anyone that's sending an application that it's going to be closed for at least the beginning of the summer period. And they should be able to make a decision as to whether or not they want to proceed with their permit, whatever parameters you folks give.
Exactly.
And I have talked with Public Works already, and we're getting, after tonight's meeting, we're looking at getting some signs made to post down at the boat ramp and the multi-use path in the beach area to let everyone know when the parking areas will be closed and unavailable for use. So we can start publicizing and putting that out there for the public.
Paul, to get back to your earlier discussion on the dredging and the permits and hiring an engineering firm to maybe kind of look into that a little bit. I think that the primary question that we need to ask there is, if we do get this dredging done, what type of ongoing recurring maintenance will be required to keep that dredged area open?
It's the same way we have a Beachville project and we continue to maintain that Beachville, this is in reverse. Once we have an establishment that we've lowered the boat ramp elevation and dredging is then required, it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years, it might be 5 years. We don't know. I mean, we've never dredged that boat ramp before. So we don't know how fast it's going to silt in.
Paul,
Excuse me?
The dredging permit would be good for 5 years, is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
So,
What's the revenue we bring in, John, every year?
Pardon me?
What's the revenue we bring in from the boat ramp? The average revenue we bring in from the boat ramp every year?
From the boat ramp, we have, in 2020, we brought in just over 16,000 in permits. 2019 was less, was almost 13,000.
What's our operational costs?
And our operational cost is approximately around 14,000.
So with that type of revenue, and
It's pretty much a break even.
It's a pretty much a wash. Yeah.
so we certainly wouldn't be able to pay for any additional dredging every year or every other year out of the revenue from the boat ramp.
Not without a significant increase in the boat ramp price, which
I mean,
I don't know if that's justified based on the
really-
other ramps in the area.
The figures are a little hard to comprehend, partly because last year was a COVID year, so people were looking for any type of excuse to get outside, so they were using the boats probably more than what they might normally and took advantage of the boat ramp. But you could also look at it from a business venture kind of thing, like if we improve it, will they come? And is there an opportunity to expand the amount of people that will use the boat ramp? Because right now it's pretty difficult to get your boat in at low tide. So, if we do the dredging, I think there could be more of an opportunity for people to use it. And that's something that, the committee has to determine whether or not it's feasible to do it that way.
How much additional parking are we creating so that we'll be able to put, trucks and trailers in the area? I mean,
we're not increasing the parking for boats,
having
really.
a line and at least direct the traffic better than what's going on right now. Is that correct?
Correct, but but I would not anticipate any increase of boat parking than what is traditionally available during the summer when the boats are competing with the beach goers, for parking. So, and because it's so haphazard parking in that unlined gravel area, as the mayor said, so it's very difficult to really, account for that.
So even if the improvements would draw more people, there's no place for them to park.
Probably not. They may have to go out and park out on Shore Road and walk back in.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a good solution, especially for a new park that we're trying to construct at this point. But it is a problem that needs to be addressed. And quite frankly, we had more people using the beach area than what we have in the past as well. So.
And with the multi-use path, you have, when I was just down there this morning, there was a constant flow of people using the multi-use path compared to any other users that were down there.
Mm-hmm.
So Barbara's looking for some guidance here.
Well,
what's the ramifications if we don't charge this year and just take 1 year off? It sounds like we're going to lose money if we even do it part of the year at a discounted rate.
Well, your costs will be a little bit lower because you're not going to have the boat ramp attendants out there for the month of June. So, you know,
But
there
if
will
we're
be
going to
that.
prorate everybody's fees, we're not going to take in as much
Oh.
money. So
It'll continue to be a wash at best.
Well, yeah, or it's potentially a $16,000 loss for this particular year if we don't charge for some sort of boat ramp pass. So,
well, it's not a loss because we're not paying the boat ramp attendants. So it was a break even. It wasn't like it was a profit maker before.
Right.
So again, Barbara's looking for guidance as to how to answer these folks that are asking for a boat ramp pass. So are we saying that, maybe we're not going to charge this year because we're not exactly sure. We have a hope date of July 1st, but we're not sure when it's actually going to open. And then when it does open, we're going to run it without a attendant. That's, I think we need to think about that, because at least the boat attendant helps direct people to not only put them in the water, but he or she also helps to tell people where to park and how to park.
I think where we're at is what Dan was saying. Let's come up with an easy way to come up with what the rate's going to be. You come up with a flat rate, whether you're registering early or just registering late. We come up with a flat fee. The daily fee will be at a reduced rate so that there's no major issues there. And of course, we're going to have an attendant there because you need a traffic cop. Those people kill each other if somebody's not out there. I mean, between the jet skiers and the boaters, you got to have somebody out there that's going to maintain order. And also, they help to take care of the parking lot. I mean, they're going to be able to make sure people park between the lines out there. So this year, we're going to have to take a hit. We want to at least get some revenue out of it, but we're going to have to come up with a number, make that our fee for the use of the ramp, and we'll go at it. And more than likely, guys, we're not going to have a new ramp there either. Right, Paul?
I mean, that would be something we'd have to discuss. I mean, you could build it deeper in anticipation of the dredging and get it done possibly during when it's closed. But that's, as we move further along, it's that would be very difficult to have that boat ramp done at this point ahead of, because you won't have the dredging permit. So you'd have to say, we'd be okay with constructing a ramp but not having the dredging completed.
What's the estimate on the dredging permit?
Correct. Yeah, you can't charge somebody full price for a ramp that we know that's defunct anyway. So, we're just going to have to figure, hey, they're going to be using this ramp.
Season price.
Yep.
What was that, John?
Yeah, I mean, let's come up.
Why don't we just keep it the pre-season price all year long?
I think that's a good idea.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just
make it simple.
You want the daily rate the same as
Keep the daily rate the same.
the
The
weekly
daily rate won't change because you won't charge the daily rate until it's open.
Right.
Right, but it's a different rate for the weekend and the weekday.
But until it's open, that's not you're not going to sell a daily pass when it's closed.
Okay.
Paul, may I ask a question? Paul, does the bid specs have to be changed based upon the dredging?
It would be a separate spec. It'd be a separate bid. I typically would not. I would do a separate bid for the dredging compared to the boat ramp.
No, I understand.
There's two different contractors.
Does the design of the boat ramp have to change based upon the fact that you'll do dredging?
Yes.
All right. So that has to happen. What does that do to the time frame if you're going to design a boat ramp with that's going to be sufficient for dredging, and then Then you have to dredge before you can really open it up and use it properly.
Most likely, I mean, you're not going to be able to. It's not going to be completed this spring. You're going to hold off and do the ramp at a future date. Most likely, I mean, and unless
So you're saying the construction of the ramp will occur after the season. So we'll use the old ramp with dredging when the construction stops in that area and you can park. Is that what you're saying?
that is the most likely scenario, yes.
And when would that date? That's a floating date. We don't know for sure when that's going to happen, correct?
Well, we haven't authorized a consultant to do the dredging permit. We haven't applied for the permit. We have to make sure that we have budgetary funds to do the dredging. So, I mean, there's a host of questions there that we can't answer because we have unknowns. So until we get a consultant on board to do the dredging permitting, we can't really answer those questions, Dan.
If I may, I'm thinking of a contractual obligation with people that come in and ask for a permit, whether it's the seasonal permit. The daily is correct. Once it's open, it's open. You'd have to explain to them that the deficiencies with the boat ramp, they'd have to understand it if they're paying a daily. However, it either has to be fully explained to the seasonal folks what the issues are and the problems and the potential non-use of the ramp, efficient use of the ramp, or you just shut it down until it's in proper operation form. You just say, look, sorry, because of the construction and because of the dredging, because of the ramp's going to be rebuilt, it's not available to someone. And that's a wash to budget-wise, from what I understand. It's not going to cost you anything to do that.
That sounds like the most practical solution.
All right, so do we need to make a motion to accept that, or do we need to do an ordinance
I
change?
think what you would do is you would do a motion to close the boat ramp during construction and renovation of the project. And then, letter of apology to the seasonal holders and say, look, it's all being, you explain the construction, explain, we're trying to get you a better product, but we're not going to be able to have it open this year.
I mean, we might not even get it dredged this year once we find out what the dredging costs. So we might be building the boat ramp and then having to dredge at a later date.
That's true.
Depending on what the final costs are.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Barbara, you're there in the trenches when these
Yes.
folks come in. Is it your suggestion that we just close it and explain to them why it's closed because of construction and renovation?
I would, and I think from a safety standpoint, if there's construction going on and no place to park, I think I do have concerns, with safety as well as with, if we are going to keep it open and you're going to, have to explain to people, we're going to have some kind of disclaimer that's, would have to go on the application because not everyone comes in person for the application. To get the permit. I mean, a lot of times it's just done through the mail. So, in order to explain it, we would have to have some kind of a disclaimer on the bottom of on the application. I think it would just make things cleaner if we, kept it closed until we were ready to be operational. And then, we could open it if you wanted to open it at a reduced rate since, the season potentially could be half over. I think that would make sense, but so it's up to you folks.
And we have alternatives for boat ramp at Mosquito Landing, and isn't there one at McNamara Game Preserve?
Yes.
Well, just McNamara, not Mosquito Landing.
McNamara.
There's no boat ramp on Mosquito Landing.
Okay. Okay.
And the one at McNamara, if you have you can buy a boat ramp permit for that ramp at the township clerk's office through the Division of Fish and Wildlife. Or if you have a fishing license, that can also serve for your boat ramp permit.
So I'm thinking the letter to the public that are requesting this should say something like, we apologize for the inconvenience. I mean, obviously, people have gone through construction, situations where something closed, until such time as it's completed. But I think we also should include in the letter the alternatives that could be available to these folks that normally are used to using boat ramp, so that they have other options to use.
There is one over on the Summers Point side too. I'm not exactly sure where it's at.
Yeah, and then you got the one in Ocean City,
Ocean
State
City.
Park outside of Ocean City that's there as well. But that's really packed every time I've ever passed it. Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, or Sunday. It's always very busy. So
You also got Tennessee Avenue in Ocean City.
now, I think it's at least worthwhile to put a list together of what other alternatives are available. Because there are a lot of residents that do use that boat ramp, and we will certainly want to try and accommodate them in any way we can.
Okay, that's not a problem.
All right.
So you would need a motion to close the boat ramp until further notice and notify the season holders and applicants.
So moved.
I'll second that. All right, so we have a first and second. Would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Thank you.
So I guess the next item would be, would you committee like a resolution for professional services contract as outlined in that email? I'll get a more formal proposal, but we've used that consultant previously on other projects and, to do the dredging permitting.
Yeah, and Paul, could you kind of circulate a timeline to us too, so we have kind of an idea of, what comes first, how long it's going to take, what the construction period is going to be, so we can kind of, get a visual of that?
Sure.
Thanks, and I'll make the motion.
Second.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
And Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Anything else we
hereby
can
move.
discuss? We're good with that discussion? Okay, so who would like to
Yes,
make
sir.
a motion to pay the bills?
I hereby move that all claims submitted for payment at this meeting be approved and then incorporated into the full minutes of this meeting.
Second.
Would you call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Right, there is one report from our municipal departments from municipal court. That report will be available upon request of the clerk's office, but I'll make a motion to accept that report.
Second.
Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Corson?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Okay, so at this time, we're going to open it up for public comment. I appreciate everyone being patient. We had a lot on our agenda this evening, and I know it's a little late, but we're certainly open to hear your comments. If you would like to address the Township Committee, now's the time to do so. Please unmute your line, state your name, your address, and your reason for addressing the Township Committee.
Yes, Mayor Palumbo, it's Linda Bateman, 14 East Tecumseh, President of the Strathmere Improvement Association. I have two quick questions. One about the lifeguards. I believe the township, the lifeguards page needs to be updated. It has 2019 information. I don't know that we want to publicize it and direct people. I'm not sure how to direct people, how to find out how old they have to be or how they would go about contacting someone. So
Okay, so we will make sure that's updated, and Mr. Corson has it, but just based, if he doesn't mind, I know that they have to be at least 16 years old to
Yes.
be able to try out for the lifeguards.
They
And
have
we
to have a doctor.
certainly give preference to individuals that qualify, meaning get through all the criteria with the swimming and the running and the dash, whatever it's called, surf dash. And we give some preference certainly to the residents of the township. Go ahead, Curtis. I'm sorry, but I just thought it would be easier because I almost got it memorized. So.
And
Yes,
do you
they
have
also
to,
have. They have to have a doctor's note saying they're physically capable to try out before they try out.
that has to all be done before they show up on the 12th of June?
The doctor's note,
Yes.
yes, they'll need
And
to
the
get a doctor.
application?
The application, one will be online, provided soon. It'll be online, or they can actually pick it up the day of the tryout, which will be the 12th at 11 a.m.
Okay, and about the budget hearing on the 26th of April, that's public comment. How can the public view the proposed budget in advance? How will they know what to comment or how to comment?
It's my understanding we had to get through the introduction, and from that point going forward, it should be posted on our website. Anybody?
So after the
disagree with that?
26th, people will be able to view it.
No,
Yes.
after,
Beginning tomorrow,
beginning tomorrow,
will be viewed, posted.
Oh, so beginning tomorrow, you can see it in advance.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I didn't catch that. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, this is David Cummings, 1808 Commonwealth Avenue. A follow-up question to Linda Bateman's. Is the existing or the previous budget posted so we can compare the proposed versus the current budget?
Go ahead,
Yes.
Barbara.
Yes, the prior year's budgets are on the website.
On the upper township website?
Yes, correct.
And can you tell me exactly where that would be?
Are you asking for the email, the website
Yeah.
address, or are you asking where it would be? And if you stroll,
No,
going
I
through
can get to the upper township website. I'm just wondering, is it filed or available under some subheader or?
It's under departments, finance and treasurer, and it says budget documents.
Okay, thank you. Another question or a comment. I guess I'd like to recognize the Strathmere Improvement Association and a lot of the neighbors and their focus around the beach sand dredging issue from the Deauville. I know there's been some issues there. I want to thank the mayor for following up on that and working with Ocean City to bring in some equipment to remedy the situation, a substandard situation. I was curious to know about how much that cost was going to be that the Deauville's going to reimburse the township for, if you could answer that.
We don't have the total figures yet, but we can make that available at some point. But at this point, we're still putting the numbers together.
All right. Well, thank you very much for addressing that because that was a concern of many neighbors.
It was an effort of all the committee in one way or another. In fact, Mr. Corson was down collecting things, and I was down there with Paul one day, and I know that Ed Barr was there. So, it was a collective effort by the township committee.
I know a lot of the community neighbors had concerns about that. The last question I had around the cannabis issue, if a lot of you have termed this thing about attractive nuisance and everything else, is the township able, if this thing, and I agree that the voters ought to weigh in and the mayor's comments about what do the voters really want here, but is the township able to adopt some sort of sales tax that's local to Upper Township if one of these things was installed that would be either a significant negative motivator to bring one here or a significant tax revenue if one was in fact installed?
The tax is set by state statute, 2% on retail, 1% wholesale.
So the township could not impose another tax on top of that?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy Roche, I know you had something that you wanted to talk about during the ordinance. You want to join us with discussion now?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. You guys really had a lot on your plate. I have about 17 questions from everything you talked about.
Oh, no, well, wait, before we do anything, Randy, we got to get your address for the record.
124 Prescott Street, Strathmere, New Jersey. So okay. I'm going to skip 15 of the 17.
Oh, goodness, you're a good man.
And I'll echo the previous man's comments, Mayor. I don't know what the constituents of Upper Township voted for as far as legalization of marijuana, etc. But if you find if your research tells you that they did vote that way, I think you hit the nail on the head, Mr. Mayor, that you should listen to them and how they want that to play out throughout their township, rather than just putting the committee in a bubble and saying, well, this isn't for us. I think that's what you said, Rich, and I think the constituents get to weigh in further on your future plans. And I just have a sort of a question and a comment. I'm going to say this on my own behalf, not from any organization. I read daily, and we all do. In fact, when I got home tonight, there was a special on MSNBC about rising sea levels and coastal mitigation in New Jersey, homes being raised and funds being raised, and throughout towns. Our neighbors to the north and south, our immediate neighbors, have active budgets and active plans. I'm curious to know, is there an active budget or a planned budget with Upper Township resources to engage in fighting sea level rise throughout Upper, Beasley's Point, Whale Beach, Strathmere? And if there are active grants in process, how many are there, and what are they to address active, like federal grants to federal government, and perhaps the state of New Jersey makes them available? This is a question for anybody on the committee. Mr. Dietrich, where are we now as far as actively pursuing sea level rise and flood mitigation?
So Randy, you probably missed, Mr. Corson brought this up during our kind of government presentations, and he had asked if we could move forward with potentially looking into having, and I don't want to speak for him, he can certainly speak about potentially looking for some funding.
You're doing it. We're actually, Randy, we're investigating hiring a grant writer to look into some funding to try to mitigate some of these things.
Yeah, and the other thing is Randy, I mean, we do have some money budgeted for in the bond that maybe we can, potentially consider, at least to initiate and get some research off the ground to look at it. I mean, it's been a very difficult year for us in general because, and I'm not trying to blame everything on COVID. It's not probably fair to do that, but it really has impacted our budget going forward. And we still have experienced some significant increases with insurance and labor and a lot of other things, which Mr. Coggins could certainly relate to. But, I don't want you to think we're turning our backs on it. We're certainly going to consider it because any way we can protect infrastructure makes sense for us because it costs us more to repair it on the back end. So, it's something that, we might be able to talk a little bit about as a committee, if there's some available funds that we can, move from a designated, bonded allotment to potentially that as well. So I don't know, Mr. Coggins, if you have
Mayor?
any comments on that from a budgetary standpoint.
Okay.
Mayor, I just would also.
Go ahead.
Mayor, I just would also comment, I worked with, Randy, this Environmental and Fishing Club last year, and we did partner on applying for a grant to look into that. However, unfortunately, it was a federal grant. Those are very, very super competitive, and we unfortunately weren't able to get that grant. I think we talked about that during our budget process, and that was one reason why we did, put in some of our budget to look at doing some of that preliminary engineering with a consultant to kind of get us a leg up the next time that those grant proposals come out. So I think that would be one of the best things for us to do is moving forward with getting some of that preliminary engineering work done so that we are in a better shape, that when these federal grants come out, that puts us in a better position to receive those funds.
Agreed. And I had an opportunity to discuss that with you and Rich and a couple of my fishing club associates. So I really think the sense of urgency is increasing. And from my limited understanding, the federal government is making more funds available right now for these programs. And again, I underscore limited understanding. So I hope we can continue to work on that at a rapid pace. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I would just like to comment. I think that the committee has done some small things. When we did the bulkhead ordinance and looked at that, I think that was a first step. Because a lot of things that we can't look at a lot of the pumping stations and whatnot until we get a lot of the back bay protected with bulkheads. Since the committee's adopted that ordinance, besides the township raising our 2 bulkheads, there has been probably over 6 to 10 property owners that have raised their bulkheads since the committee adopted that timed ordinance to where the committee gave everybody 10 years to raise their bulkheads. So, that's been an active process. The planning board also adopted an ordinance looking at raising the finished floor elevations of the garages and ground floors of structures up to elevation 7. And what that does is allow, as the homes get built up a little bit higher, it allows the township and the county to elevate the roads and create more height and get the properties out of harm's way in that way. So we are looking at small things to move forward, but I think getting that preliminary engineering done ahead of time would be the most prudent thing to do right now.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Would anyone else like to address the township committee?
Everybody has been unmuted, Mayor.
Okay. And I'll ask again if there's any other public comment before I close it.
This is Larry Truly. Let me add my 2 cents, please.
Sure. Larry, you have to state your address, please.
Larry Truly, 430 Route 9 in Marmora. I want to thank the committee for taking under consideration carefully the marijuana discussions. And I just want to caveat onto something that Curtis Corson said. We do not have a police force here, and I think that's something weighing heavily in my support or non-support. And I also look this way. Yes, 2-1, the voters voted to decriminalize the use of marijuana and to approve it for recreational use. But I really feel, and I agree with Committeeman Hayes, that if you poll the people on the street, especially the parents at the ballparks and the sporting events, that they had no idea that we would be in a position where we would have congregations of adults and children smoking pot in front of other kids. And I think all that has to be taken into consideration. And 1 or 2% for making Roosevelt Boulevard the gateway to Upper Township pot distribution centers, if I add my 2 cents, that's pennies. So that's it. That's all I have to say. And I thank each one of you, Mayor Palumbo, Ed Barr, John Coggins, Curtis Corson, Kimberly Hayes, and Dan Young, for allowing the discussion and to continue this going forward. Thank you.
So the one thing that Mr. Shuley just brought up, which I think is something we also need to consider, and that is a revision of our current ordinance that bans smoking of tobacco products in our parks. So we probably need to amend, whether we decide on, dispensary or not, we still need to amend that ordinance to make sure that no participation or smoking of marijuana, or for that matter, partaking in, gummies or whatever they're called.
The vapors, all that stuff.
Any of our public parks or beaches. So we need to amend the ordinance for that specifically. And that I don't think needs to wait for anybody, to be honest with you. So.
Very good, Mayor. Thank you so much on that. And just like with alcohol, that we try to shield our youngins away from that in a public forum, I would hope that we have the ability to do that with the marijuana issue. That's all. And again, thank you so much, committee.
Thanks,
Larry.
Anyone else? Pause caller number 7, trying to get on.
Everybody's
Mayor, was
unmuted.
that a motion for the amendment of the tobacco?
Yes. A motion to revise the current ordinance that prohibits smoking of tobacco to include cannabis/marijuana products, inclusive, not just for smoking.
I'll second that, and God bless you, Dan.
It's always scary when somebody sneezes now.
All right, so can you call the roll, and then we'll just check one more time for public comment, then I'm going to close public comment.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Carried.
Okay, one last shot at this. Anybody else want to address the township committee? All right. Everyone's unmuted. Doesn't sound like or look like there's anybody else that wants to speak. So you're comfortable, Dan, if I close the public portion?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, I'll close the public portion of the meeting. I thank all of you for attending. I thank all of you who had input on tonight's meeting. And more importantly, I thank you for your courtesy. Very difficult to try and have these virtual calls when a number of people are on. And I think everyone made it very easy for us this evening. So thank you. So with this, I'll turn to Committeeman John Coggins, and entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I hereby move that a resolution be incorporated into the minutes authorizing the Township Committee to enter into an executive session for the following matters pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Matters are contract negotiation for tax lien assignment, contract negotiation for our affordable housing administrator, litigation, State of Zajac versus Upper Township, and personnel. I also include in my motion the estimated time and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public as follows. It is anticipated that the matters discussed in closed session may be disclosed to the public upon the determination of the Township Committee that the public interest will no longer be served by such confidentiality. With respect to employment and personnel matters, such discussions will be made public if and when formal action is taken or when the individuals involved consent that it can be made public. With respect to contract negotiations, such matters will be made public when negotiations have ceased and there is no longer a reason for confidentiality. With respect to litigation matters, such discussions will be made public when litigation is complete and the applicable appeal period has expired.
Second.
Call the
Mr.
roll.
Barr? Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Coggins?
Yes.
Mr. Corson?
Yes.
Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo?
Yes.
Motion
And
carried.
just for the public, we may come back after closed session and have something that we may be voting on. So if you'd like to stay on, this line will remain open, and you're welcome to stay on until the Township Committee comes back into open session.
Can we take a 2-minute break between these?
Yeah, I want to make sure, does everyone have the executive session website to
Yes.
get into? Okay.
I just
All right.
emailed it to everyone.
Thank you, everyone, from the public. And we'll see you guys in a couple minutes.
Thank you, gang. Have a good night.
Good night.
Curtis, how did you beat me? You never beat me.
I'm tired. I want to go to bed.
You want to go to bed? It's all about motivation.
Scott, did you text Paul?
Yeah, I just did.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. All right, good.
All right, we have Dan, we have Curtis, Kim, John, Ed. So we have our 5 members. We have Dan. So would someone like to make a motion to go out of executive session to open session?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn from closed session and resume the public portion of the meeting.
Second.
Second.
Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr,
Yes.
Mr. Coggins,
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not sure who you were asking for.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mayor Palumbo,
Yes.
motion is carried.
All right.
Like to
Someone
make a
like to make a
motion to
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
2 hands up. All right. Thank you, everybody. It was a long night.
Everybody.
We got a lot of discussion tonight. So I hope everyone has a great night and a great week. And we'll be in touch.